Hi everyone and welcome to PCA's Garage. This is Tech Tactics Live, episode 60, and tonight we'll be talking about off-season Porsche projects. We didn't want to call it winter projects because some of you are actually entering your driving season, so we just called it off-season Porsche projects. First, we want to make sure we thank our sponsor Pirelli, for without their support, none of this would happen. And of course, if you're enjoying the show, be sure to like, comment, and of course subscribe. We're looking to get to 100,000 subscribers, and each and every one of you that are watching, if you enjoy it, by clicking subscribe, you can help us get that much closer to our goal. So if you allow me to introduce our guest for tonight, didn't have to go very far, didn't have to worry about Wi-Fi connections or microphones. We have our very own PCA Technical Director, Manny Albin. Manny, come on down. So those of you that are watching live tonight on Wednesday, I'll be monitoring the live chat. Tonight's actually going to be quite casual. We have a list of things that we thought would be pretty handy to share with all of you to consider working on your Porsche during the off season. And I'll be monitoring the live chat to see what you all have maybe brought to our attention that you're going to be doing during the off season on your car that we might not have on your list. So I think we have about 20 items or so. The agenda for tonight is basically what can you do to your Porsche during the off season, and like I said, I'll be looking at the live chat and looking at the projects that you all, the audience, have chimed in and said that you'll be working on. So with that, Manny, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah, so we actually are going to be writing an article about projects you can do in the off season. So I'm interested to hear what the audience has to say, what they're going to be working on during the off season. There's no reason, even if you're storing your car in the winter, that you can't do things to your Porsche. No sense in just leaving it there by itself for a couple months when you can do things to improve it and make it that much better. So when springtime comes around, you got a better looking car than when you put it in storage.
And it's already coming in. We already have G. Krieger chiming in saying that they're going to take care of their intake vent screens, and we're actually going to cover that.
Yep. That's a big one.
All right, so you want to roll the slides that you put together?
All right, Robert. So that's exactly our first one.
Is it really? Perfect.
Yeah. My wife's been driving our Boxster this week. And, of course, in Maryland, the leaves are all falling. It looks beautiful. But when she comes home, I see a bunch of leaves in all the radiator openings. And this is, in fact, I wrote the Tech Tips article yesterday about making it a habit of cleaning your radiators, even if it means getting there with a vacuum and just getting all the debris inside the radiators out. It's going to make a big difference, because this stuff eventually, especially if you squirt water inside of it or use a power washer, or if you're just driving in the rain or washing the car, that stuff starts to break down and starts to corrode the radiators and the condenser. And I know you've done it to your car. It is pretty nasty and ugly what it can do. You know, when Porsche had this design, I wish they would have done something better than, you know, because even the air-cooled cars have oil coolers, and somehow they protected them in the front. But when it came to the 996s and the 986s or 987s, 997s, no, they're like catch cans for debris. So it's something important to check out.
Yeah, so like Manny said, the you know, the leaves and the debris, they will, you know, compact into the far recesses of your bumper, and then they become acidic and they attack the aluminum pieces. And so what happened to me is the condenser, my air conditioning condenser, developed a pinhole leak. So one day I had air conditioning and the next day I didn't, and it was purely because I didn't clean out you know, the radiators and condensers. And we have a video where you can, as Manny said, you can poke in there with a vacuum and probably get 80% of it out there. But if you have a 986, 996, 997, I haven't tried it on the later models, but you know, taking the front bumper cover off is very easy, and you can be, you know, I'm sure there's lots of how-tos. We do have a video there where we took off the bumper cover, but once you take the bumper cover off, the condenser and also the radiators, they're kind of like sandwiched in position. So if you go through the front with just a vacuum hose, you'll probably get everything that's in front, but you're going to miss what's in between the radiator and the condenser. And by taking the bumper off, you can actually separate those two pieces and really get there and clean it out. And it sounds like it's a major, major surgery. It looks like it's major surgery in this video that you're watching here, but it really isn't. Watch the video a number of times before you attempt it yourself, but you'll get in there and you'll notice. I mean, I had probably 2 bags full worth of junk, including cigarette butts and who knows what.
And the more you take the bumper off every year, make it an annual endeavor, it becomes easier and easier. Right? It's like the door panels of my 964. I can take it off blindfolded. I've taken them off so many times. So the same way with the bumper. It may look daunting the first time, but it's actually not at all.
Yeah, and look at all the crud that's coming out there. And one of the things that you can do to help prevent this is there's different companies, especially if you look in Porsche Panorama, that makes grill screens that you can put in, behind the vents of your bumper to keep most of this stuff out. It's not
that was actually our second tip.
What a lead-in.
Yes, it was. If you really want to get serious, I think the second tip was plan on taking your front bumper off and installing those screens. You could buy the screens pre-made already. If you search online, I know Renline, I think Radiator Grill Guards is one of our sponsors too.
Yeah, we have a couple of them in Panorama.
Several of them. It's not hard to find. They make preformed kits. There's actually online, there's ways you can do it yourself. You go to Home Depot, and I saw a video where they did it for $8. Got some gutter guard and some plastic dip paint, and it looked pretty legit. But the main thing is you have something that's keeping the large pieces of debris. Still good annually to clean it out because there's small stuff that's going to get in there, and not to harp forever on this, but this stuff gets below the radiator where you can't see it. You may peek in and say, yeah, it's all clean, but the stuff wedges itself in there.
And you saw in the video that just passed, we were taking off the trim piece of the intake of the bumper. A lot of Boxsters and 996s, when you look at them, they're like uniformly gray, and they're actually not gray from the factory. They're black, but they've got sun on them, UV rays, and they become completely gray. So not only can you clean out all the debris that's in your bumper, but you can pop those off and hit them with your favorite black satin or whatever you want and make them nice and black again.
Yep.
All right, what's next?
The next would be replacing hood struts. Now this seems pretty easy, and most of the time it is. I think the aftermarket ones, for some reason, they don't last as long as the factory ones. They're a lot less expensive, but I find myself almost doing it every other year, replacing the hood struts. The benefit to doing that is you're not going to get whacked in the head with your hood or your trunk. Usually it's the hood, the heavier one, that's going to hit you in the head. And this goes for the back hatch of a Cayenne. That's pretty heavy.
Yep.
I would watch a video, just YouTube a video to see how it's done to save yourself some time. I went to replace some on my daughter's Infiniti a couple weeks ago. I ordered the struts, and I noticed when I ordered them it said with mounts and without mounts. And I thought, well, I don't need mounts because it already has it, so I would do without mounts. And then I found out that I should have ordered with the mounts. Had I watched the video, I would have known those. So now I have to send them back and get the ones with the mounts because it makes it a lot easier. So, just take a peek at the video, how you replace it, even though you may think it's straightforward, and make sure you have all the parts so you can order everything when you do the project. It's a simple, shouldn't take more than an hour to replace your struts. I will say though, on the, at least the 964, the rear deck lid, wow, that was, it's buried in under the sound pad, and it takes a contortionist. If you do a lot of yoga, that'll probably help you.
He was saying an hour for hood struts. That's for something up front and very accessible. The hood struts on the back of a G-body car will take much longer than that, just because you have to have little hands and you have poker tools and you got to get back in there. Doing the struts on the Cayenne, they are actually like inside the roof, and because it's nice and hidden, which is great aesthetically, but replacing them can be a bear. And there's actually a shock for the half window and then the shock for the full lid. And they're because those rear tailgates are so heavy, they're actually pretty heavy duty shocks and take a lot of pressure. So if you're doing a big project like that, I recommend having someone, a second set of hands to help you out. And then again, watch the videos. You might need some special tools. I know for the Cayenne, I needed this kind of super long clip release tool that I bought online for like 15 bucks. It's like a clip release it looks like a screwdriver, but it's a little bit longer, and that way you can go all the way in there and unclip some stuff.
I wish everyone would standardize to make life easy, but
It's
they
not.
don't.
It's not. All right, what else do we have?
I think the next one is painless dent removal. Now this is something that if you're planning not to drive your car in the winter, schedule a day when either the person come out to your garage, because a lot of these painless dent removals will come out to your place and do the work there, or schedule when there's the roads are clean and you can take your car out and have it taken to a professional to work on all those dents you see every time you wash the car, you wax the car, and just get it done. It's the off season is a perfect time to do this. And if you've never had painless dent removal, it's amazing what they can do. Ask around. You always know someone who can do amazing work and not damage your paint. And you'll have a hard time remembering where the painless dent removal. I've never seen anyone do it themselves.
I can tell you, I have a set of paintless dent removal tools, and I bought a set online. I've been mildly successful
On the Porsche or some other car?
I did it on my son's Honda Fit. I practiced on his car first, so I could get some stuff out, but it is an art, and if you do it wrong, there's a high price to pay.
Yes.
If you cause what they call an Audi, or if you crack the paint or whatever. So definitely recommend, especially on your Porsche, that's something that you want a professional to do. As Manny said, ask around at your Cars and Coffee in the mornings, or someone in your local region. They will know who the go-to person is for paintless dent repair. And sometimes it can be quite costly to have someone come just to work on one car, and you might not have that many dents or dings on your car. So think about bringing someone out and saying, hey, not only do I have maybe one or two dents on my my Porsche, but perhaps your son's Honda Fit also has one, and kind of make a day of it. And while they're there, I'm sure they're happy to service one customer and do a few cars. Saves you some money, saves them some time driving around. You get a better deal out of it. So that's a little tip.
A lot of shops also have their own painless dent removal person who will come once a week and do the work. But it makes such a big difference, because we look at a lot of cars, and I always feel bad when I'm looking at a car and the owner starts pointing out all the dents that I wouldn't have seen, but now that he showed it to me, it cannot be unseen.
It can't be unseen, right?
And just get it done. You don't have to worry about it coming season.
What's next?
The deep cleaning, and actually, I think we had treat your leather interior.
Oh yes.
So this is something a lot of people forget about, especially with the newer cars, because the leather's new, and you don't think about the fact that it does get dirty, and that you have to maintain it. That's the beauty of vinyl. Vinyl you don't really have to maintain, but leather you do. You have to feed it. It's skin, so you got to keep it moisturized. So the key is to keep it. First, do a thorough cleaning on it, because you've been sitting on it all year, and it gets dirty. Even if you have a black interior or dark gray, it's kind of hard to see the dirt. You have a beige interior like our 964 in the studio, that is very easy to spot the dirt inside the crevices. So it's good to do a good cleaning, good washing of it, get the leather clean, and then get a nice deep conditioning to it. I think the next one is the...
Let me throw in a little tip before you go to the next one. So whatever cleaning product you decide to use on your leather, try it on sort of an area that's not obvious first. Just do a little test. Make sure it's not too aggressive that it's going to remove the dye or be bad for the leather that you're working with. Another tip, I think John Patrick passed this on to me. You know how like leather, after you've cleaned it and whatever, you kind of want that sort of satin or matte finish as opposed to a glossy leathery finish. He recommended, I haven't tried it, but what are those Mr. Clean, the little white pads?
The eraser?
The magic eraser, yes.
Funny you should say that.
Oh, really?
Because I was going to say be careful.
Oh, really?
Because a lot of people do recommend the
magic eraser.
Magic eraser, and different people make them, but we all know what they look like.
Yeah.
I saw not John's recommendation, but another recommendation. So I tried it, and it will take out the dye. If you have old leather,
Yeah.
it can take out the dye, and that's what happened to mine.
Really?
Yeah, it took out.
So remember how I said try it on a little spot first?
Yeah. So
So it will clean, but you have to be very careful.
yes,
with it.
but this stuff is very strong, very powerful. So I would use it as one of these last resort type things. It's just like conditioning your paint or cleaning your paint. You don't go with the hard stuff first. You work your way to the hard stuff. You first start with the mildest stuff first. So be careful. Magic erasers are great, but they can also do damage.
Thanks.
Yeah, I learned the hard way.
You learned the hard way. That's why we're here. All right.
Luckily, it was the Suburban that I did it on, not the
Maybe
Porsche.
it was the quality of the dye in the leather of the Suburban.
It could have been, but
It could have been, but still, the key thing is to test it
Yes.
and go with the least abrasive and aggressive solution before you go to.
So one of the things I put on there, also in the pro tip, was if your leather needs a lot of work and it's beyond conditioning or cleaning, and this is particularly true with the Boxsters with that beautiful red interior. And the red in the sun fades. And I know those of you who had those in classic silver with red, you see it almost turns orangey.
Yeah.
You can re-dye your interior. I think you did it with
Funny, you
our
should talk about
president's.
that. Robert, can you go to the camera here? I think I have it. Look at this. So here you go. If you have the Boxster, the red lobster interior, I'm not sure what the official color is. This is from Color Restorer, and this is actually what we use. His it doesn't look as bright as you would think, but this filled in a lot of the cracks that was like white lines. And
Did you have to sand it down any?
nope, I just put it on like shoe polish and just let it.
So there's
kinda
other
set.
kits where you actually sand down the leather and you prep it and you basically re-dye the seat. And for faded leather, especially red once again, or any of the colors, because the colors are obviously dyed from the factory, unless there's blue cows in the world, you just rejuvenate that leather. So if you're, once again, if your car's going to be parked all winter, it's a great project. You don't have to rush it. You can take your time. Preferably take the seats out, do it on the bench, and get it done completely with nothing obstructing you or any chance you could stain anything else.
Yeah, and this stuff is, this stuff or stuff like it is great for, those seats that have had, people slide across the bolsters, and that one left bolster is always more worn than the right one. It's a way to kind of clean everything up during the off season.
So the next one is the deep cleaning, detailing. It seems pretty obvious, but especially here in the northern states, mid-Atlantic states, it gets pretty cold in a garage. I have heat. I think you have heat in your garage. And it's, when I have a day off or something, I like to turn the heat on, get it nice and warm, and just detail sections of the car. Where normally during the driving season, if I have a Saturday or Sunday and it's nice weather, I'm going driving in the car. But in the winter, when there's salt on the roads and the weather's not that agreeable, it's great to start on projects. I would recommend, that saying about eating an elephant, you do it one bite at a time. Same thing with deep cleaning your car. Don't plan on doing the whole thing in one day. Just pick sections. It can be a one wheel well. It can be you take the whole wheel off, work on that one wheel, work on the wheel well, the suspension, and as you go through the couple months that you're going to have the car in storage, you'll be amazed how good the car will look when you're all done, and you're not stressing yourself because you're running out of time to do it. You have all winter or off season to get it done, but put on the schedule. If the car needs nothing else, a deep cleaning, even if you got a fairly new car, really will make you feel better and make the car cleaner.
Absolutely. So you don't have this on your list, but maybe we should talk about it because you and I both have these little, like what I call lunchbox heaters that are, I think, 220 volt that we just have in the corner of our garage. And, my garage is not particularly insulated well, like a dedicated garage, but it's something where I can go out. You hire an electrician to put 220 into your garage. You buy these little lunchbox heaters. It's about so big. It has a thermostat, so you can, say 60 degrees is plenty plenty warm for a winter's day. And if it's 32 degrees in the garage, I can set it to 60, go in, have a cup of coffee or two, and walk back out to the garage. And now it's nice and toasty, and you have a lot more time.
And I know that is a whole different discussion when you're talking about stuff for your garage. And I realize these type of heaters are incredibly inefficient.
Yes.
But as you say, for a couple hours working on the car.
Sure.
It does the trick. I've had mine now for 15 years. I think I got it from Northern Supply.
Something like that.
Some online place. Yeah. And it's like Bruce said, it's a phenomenal, does a phenomenal job of warming up the garage, warming up the paint on the car if I'm planning to do some detailing or paint correction. And it's, like Bruce said, very cold outside. But it makes your life so much easier if you have a reliable heat source, safe, of course, in your garage. No open flames.
No open flames, no propane or anything like that.
But you can go into a deep dive if you just Google garage heaters, because I've seen on garage forums, they have thread upon thread upon thread. It's kind of like asking Porsche guys which oil they use. Garage guys have their own theories about heat.
So I have heat, but I don't have AC, and one of my dreams is to actually do one of those like two-part units where you have I guess the condenser, whatever, outside, and you have the one like Samsung, whatever, that does heat and AC for it. That would be my dream.
My vent inside the house, it runs right along the garage, so I just ran.
You know, that's not like building code, like proper.
Well, excuse me, housing police.
Those of you who don't report Manny for having improper HVAC.
I will fix it before I sell it.
That's right, fix it. All right, next one, please.
Let's see. We did a show about cleaning your water drains.
Oh yes.
And this is it was a nightmare stories we heard.
Oh yeah.
And we know friends of ours who had cars totaled because of clogged drains. And I can't tell you how many times I read on Facebook groups for convertibles, Boxsters, even cars with sunroofs, about they suddenly have water. They don't know where the water is coming from. And the answer is almost always clogged water drains.
Yeah.
And if you make it a habit, after seeing the nightmares when we did the show of people with clogged drains, almost every time I wash the car on the Boxster or the 911, I'm checking the water drains to make sure that they're properly draining. But on the newer cars, it even becomes more difficult because at least on my 964, the drains are open and they don't have that little closed end, so bugs can't get in that Porsche did to the newer cars. But if you have never cleaned your drains out, and you have drains, no matter what, all cars have drains.
All cars have drains. They don't necessarily go from, open drain to clogged drain overnight.
No.
And so when you hop in if you have your car parked for a while and you hop into it and it has sort of that musty smell, that is certainly a telltale sign that something's going on. Some kind of wetness from the outside is getting into your car. Or let's say you park your car at night and then all of a sudden you see the bottom half of your windshield has a little bit of moisture. That's because the moisture is rising somehow inside the car and it's fogging up the windshield. So that means it's entering from somewhere and you got to find it, because you want to find it before, unfortunately, a lot of our cars have so much electronics in the floor. The absolute worst place you want to put electronics in a car, that's where they put it. And if water gets down there, as Manny said, it can total your car. And that's not something you want to wish. And look at this video here. Look at how much water is coming out of that car.
I think that was from Peter Smith, maybe, one of the Goldmeister tech from a dealership in California. And this is like a regular thing they see. Yeah. And it's not just a Porsche problem. It's all cars have these drains. So there's nothing more satisfying than finding debris and cleaning it out before it does damage. But like I said, I make it a regular thing to, and just because you look in and you see that there's nothing in the hole, that doesn't mean that the drain isn't clogged.
Right.
The best thing to do is run water through it to make sure you see it draining out again at a regular rate. And once again, YouTube it, Google it to see where the drains are on your particular model. But it's a great project to do at least once a year. And
in this area, especially during the fall, right now, all of our cars have tons of leaves. This is where it's starting to get into those drains. Now's the perfect time to look and clear them out.
So the other one is, it can be fairly simple depending on where it's located, is a cabin air filter replacement. So this is on I would guess they've been out now at least 15 years, maybe 20 years. So this is the filtering the air that goes inside the cabin. It gives you better breathing air. And they're usually in an easy to spot location. On Boxsters, it can't be any easier, at least 987s. It's like one latch right underneath the wipers, and you pull it out, stick the new one in, and you'd be amazed if you haven't done it in a while how dirty that filter is. It's worse than an air filter, I think.
Yeah, it certainly is. And then like a Cayenne, for example, and a lot of cars, Honda Odysseys or whatever, if you're working on those cars too, open your glove box on the passenger side and swing it down. Of course, take everything out of the glove box so it doesn't come flying down onto the floor. But behind the glove box door typically is where the cabin filter will reside. Now, it's pretty easy to do, but it is very important that you notice there is an arrow in which the airflow should be flowing on the cabin filter. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody just throw it in there and put it in backwards. And would it still work? Probably, but would it work efficiently? Absolutely not. And I watched a funnier video where someone bought a new cabin air filter, and you know how it has like the tight, like plastic wrap around it? They literally just slid the whole thing with the plastic wrap, and now you've essentially blocked all of your ventilation. So please remember, 1, read instructions, but 2, take the plastic wrap off of the cabin filter before you put it in, and make note of the direction of airflow.
Yeah, it's because what happens is eventually mold starts forming on there, and what's supposed to give you cleaner air now is giving you actually a more dangerous air. And that's probably one of the most oft-forgotten filters there is in a car. People usually only think about replacing the cabin filter.
Exactly.
So next up is sticking on the theme of filters is air. I had one for air filters, and the other one's fuel filters. Air filters are pretty straightforward up until I think the 991 and some of the later model Panameras. And I say up until because that required the bumpers to come off. There's an annual, or maybe not even annual, I have to look at the mileage. So fortunately, at least on those cars, they go longer intervals between having to replace the filters. But if you have a filter that's easy to get to, check it out, open it up, take a look. Don't just shake it out and put it back in. For what they cost, it's just smart to replace it.
Yeah, it surely is. And when you take it apart, place close attention of how everything fits together. It should come off, everything should come off easily, but then when you reattach it and when you're re-snapping all those hold downs, it should also be nice and snug, because if you, let's say your new air filter that you put in isn't seated correctly, that means the cover on top of it won't seat correctly, and if that doesn't seat correctly, you won't be able to clip it properly, and if you don't clip it properly, that means you might have a leak in the intake system, and if you have that, guess what? You've just triggered a check engine light, right?
Code.
And also, a lot of times when you're removing the air filter cover, you're probably going to have to disconnect the plug for the mass air sensor. So again, there's plenty of YouTube videos out there for you to watch. Watch them a couple of times, proceed with caution. It's totally doable, but you need to know what you're doing so that you don't create a bigger problem.
Yeah, it's once again, YouTube it, see how difficult it is if you feel comfortable doing it. I would say in the older cars, it's very easy to do.
Some, not that we'll comment on whether or not they work or whatever, but some people actually go from, say, an OEM paper filter to an aftermarket cotton, oil-based air filter. You can read plenty of what people think about that. I would just tell you, make sure you do your homework on all that before you replace it. But the idea is you want a clean element that's going to filter the air before it gets into your intake, and that's what's key.
And the horsepower claims, I would take that with a grain of salt as well, because
do your research.
Do your research, yes.
Do your research.
Not that simple.
Yep.
So the next one is the fuel filters. This is also something that people forget until they have a problem and the car is running rough or is hesitating, and then the mechanic may ask them, do you remember the last time the fuel filter was replaced? And usually you get a blank stare. Fuel filter usually not as easy as an air filter to replace, especially where it's located, the tools you have, and of course I highly recommend you have a fire extinguisher because it's obviously have fuel inside of it. So you want to be very careful when you're replacing this. Any kind of spark could light up a fire. Preferably, I think we have in our difficulty levels, we have, find a friend, watch a video, somebody can help guide you the first time for changing fuel filters. The really old cars, like my 914, it was pretty straightforward. It was a couple clamps, put a new one in. The new ones are a little bit more involved as far as reaching.
Yeah, it's certainly DIY-able. Again, do the research to figure out how to do it properly. One of the things is if it's simply clamps and hoses, that's fairly easy. But then some of them have, a screw-on connection, special types of connectors, and if you don't have the right tools, what you can end up is either messing up that thread or messing up the nut in which you need to remove. And if that becomes an issue, then you've just created a bigger problem. So again, totally doable, but just make sure you know how to do it by watching all the how-tos.
And right on the filter when it was replaced.
Yeah, oh, that's
so
a
next time when you use a Sharpie, so next time you underneath the car or working in the car, you can see the date it was replaced.
And also make note of when you take the filter off, the arrow on the filter, which direction
That's important.
it points to. Because when you put the new one in, you want to match it.
Yep. Next up, let's see. I think we had also replacing the ignition system. So this is a little bit more involvement as far as experience level goes. We've done it on the Boxsters here.
We did on the 996 here.
996. Once you've done it, it's pretty simple and straightforward. It's always good to have someone who's done it before with you, preferably, to help guide you and save you time. I would say the tools, certain tools you can get to make your life easier.
For the coil packs to do a 986, 996, 997, pretty standard sockets that you're going to be using. The key thing is having enough extensions because you kind of go at them at a kind of weird angle in a lot of places. Small hands also help. In some cases, removing the exhaust might help. It isn't absolutely necessary, but if you remove the exhaust, you have much easier access to pull out the coil packs. And when you're doing the coil packs, you'll want to take a look and see if there's any oil at the inside of the coil pack, because if that's the case, that means the tubes inside, the seals have also gone, and you'll want to replace the tubes, or actually the tube seals. So that's a little bit more advanced. Again, certainly DIY-able. You'll want to plan for a solid afternoon or morning to do that. Having a friend there to make fun of you definitely helps, or have them hand you tools as you're working on it. And then take a look at the ones that you take off. And what I always say is, when coil packs fail, usually it's one coil pack that fails at a time. Take one of the ones that you took off that's fairly good condition, no cracks or anything like that, put it in a box and have it as a backup in your car. So should you be on the road somewhere and one of them fails, you can pull one off and throw the spare one on.
Yeah, I would recommend just if one goes bad, look at replacing all of them.
Definitely.
Look at the mileage, because you're going to be doing it all over again. And yeah, it's going to be a lot more expensive for buying 6 coil packs versus 1. But these coil packs don't last as long as the older ones did when it was just 1 coil pack. So it's worth it, like Boo said, not to get stranded. And even if you have a spare one, it's no fun being underneath your car in the middle of the road or at an event putting a coil pack in if you don't have to. That's the great thing about this project list, is that we envision you having your car parked for a couple months in the off season. So take your time. You don't have to do it.
Or even if it's not parked for a couple months, there's just less activities. So you find yourself at home during the weekend. But you still want to play with your car, right?
Yep. So, exactly.
Spark plugs. Do your research as far as what spark plugs you want to put in there. I know there's different spark plugs that give you all sorts of claims and firepower, this, that, and the other. You know what? I like OEM.
Yep.
Just go OEM. That's me.
I can't tell you how many times I bought spark plugs because I fell for the hype of more power, this, that, and the other, and the car ran worse. And when I finally gave up and took it to my mechanic, trying to figure out what was wrong, when I came to pick it up, he handed me back those expensive spark plugs and said, yeah, you should have just put OEM in. And the car was running great. So I can't speak for all the spark plugs, but like Boo said, do your research. And there's a lot to be said about OEM.
Yep. What's the next one?
Next one is, we just did this tonight.
This is a fun one.
Yeah, we did. We're going to do a video on it also. Plastic headlight restoration. So obviously, if you have a newer car, or at least one that was built after, I guess, 97 when they started putting plastic on, right? Mm-hmm. They fade out. They get smoky. They get scratchy.
The yellow out.
The yellow out. They look terrible. Yeah. It's not like glass. They have a bunch of different restoration kits. And Lord knows, I know Boo's tried a lot. I've tried a lot. In fact, tonight, before the show, Boo had his friend Peter on, and he brought his Honda, and we bought a kit from Griot's we used that has Cerakote on it. And I use this on my little daily driver, my little BMW, and so far I'm very impressed.
So with this kit, the video that you're watching was that was done 2 years ago, and the quote headlight restoration technology back then was to sand it and to spray it with this clear coat, which required you to tape off the car and make sure that you didn't get overspray on it, and it certainly worked. As far as how it came out, the spray, depending on how good you are with the spray can, it had more or less orange peel. But it did its job. It probably brought it back to about 80%, much better than when it was looking fully cloudy. But now they have this new product that has this Cerakote solution that it's not a spray-on with an aerosol. You're just simply, they've got a wet wipe that gets the major crud off, and then you wet sand from 1,000 grit to 2,000 grit to 3,000 grit, make sure it's nice and even. And then it has a final wet nap that's made of the Cerakote material, and you're simply sliding it across the lens, and it's amazing at how clear it becomes. I would say it takes it to about 95%. It's not like when it was brand new, but way, way better than when it was all crusty looking. So we're going to update the video that you just saw and go to this kit here. This is the ceramic headlight restoration kit from Griot's, and you'll see how to do it. It took us not even an hour, and we were making fun of Peter while he was doing it, so maybe about half an hour.
It's almost like black magic, because right before you put the final ceramic coating on it, this thing looks like a scratched up. I joked, I said it looks like the car has cataracts. Yeah. Because it's so blurry, and it's literally you wipe it down with what looks like a wet wipe, and it's amazing how clear and brand new it looks just by putting that wipe on. Follow directions closely. Most manufacturers have an accompanying video. When I did mine, I watched the video a couple times, and once I got to it, less than an hour to do both headlights. It was, I've had it on now for 3 months. The other ones I tried on did not last more than 3 months, and you could start seeing that it was starting to scratch up again and yellow. This one I think is guaranteed for 2 years. Hopefully that happens. I'm optimistic.
If it lasts a year,
if it lasts a year, I still am happy.
You're still ahead of the game.
I was frustrated after 3 months with the other ways that I was doing it, and I tried the spray on with UV clear spray. So yeah, that's an easy way to make your car look a lot better, and a great off-season project.
All right.
So next up along those lines is replacing burnt-out light bulbs.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So we all have them. I'm not talking about the headlights, because that's pretty evident, and the police will usually let you know when you have a burnt-out headlight or taillight. But we're really talking about the interior lights, the luggage light, the engine compartment lights.
Or your little side marker lights?
Yeah, side marker lights. That's stuff that you... I usually don't remember that they're burnt out until it's dark, or I'm looking in my trunk for something and I got to pull my phone out to see what I'm looking at. Great off-season project. Look up, see if you can't read the type of bulb it is when you take the burnt one out. Look it up online. and get I have a collection of bulbs in my glove compartment now because you always get two of them, and I usually need just one, so I just keep the extra one in the glove box because I know then it'll never burn out because I have the spare one. But it's great to have that light in the engine compartment, the trunk, and we put on there a pro tip is as the cars get older, you have gauge lights that start to burn out, and you have instrument lights, meaning the HVAC that starts to burn out. And my Suburban got to the point where they were all burnt out. So as long as I've had it, you would think I would remember where everything was, but no, I would have to turn on the either the overhead light or turn my cell phone light on to be able to see how to adjust the temperature. So
now we have options here when you're considering light bulbs, and Manny and I kind of differ on this one. I would tend to think that Manny's going to look for a light bulb that simply is the OEM replacement, incandescent, especially on the older cars. But you do have an option now if you want more of a modern or brighter looking light. You could switch
or you
to
want to blind everyone coming home.
You could switch to LEDs. And then we're not talking about headlights, but even interior lights, you could switch to a more white light. You could switch to, there you go, a more white light. You could switch to blue lights or red lights or whatever you might pick. So there are some options there if you want to customize your interior lighting, or for example, I think we talked about it, I think it was on our podcast, like on these older cars that don't have third brake lights, but you want people to get their attention when you're hitting the brakes, is you can actually buy these bulbs that will blink a couple of times when you first apply power to them, so that people, it's not a third brake light, but definitely get your attention when you hit the brake light. And with these little tiny lights, especially on G-body cars, without a third brake light, they're almost unnoticeable in today's traffic. So you have this LED that blinks brightly a couple times before it stays solid red. That might be an option for you to consider.
Right. Check with your local law enforcement. Make sure it's legal.
Make sure it's legal.
It's because they sell it in the auto parts store doesn't mean that it's legal on the road, but it does get your attention. And I agree with you, for the older cars, the last thing you want to do is be rear-ended. I will also put in the article that we're going to write about these ideas is a link to a site I found that sells LED interior and gauge light replacements that are basically plug and play.
Oh,
so
like a whole kit?
And you buy a whole kit for your particular Porsche, which I thought was really interesting. So if you want to replace you shouldn't replace just your tack and not the other gauges, because you're going to have a really bright tack and then a really dim. But these older cars, even though the light hasn't burnt out, it's just not as bright as it was when it was new. So it's
but you lose that romantic look. It's a little bit more dim.
Yeah, but it's not so romantic when you can't see what speed you're going.
All right, next.
Let's see. We've got
windshields.
Oh, this is a simple one. This is easy. I put on there watch a video because I went to replace my wife's Chevy Sonic wipers, and oh my God, Chevy went the most difficult wiper. Even Gennady, the shop I go to, GT Performance, he was stumped too. He couldn't believe that Chevy made anything so difficult on such a little Econobox car. Yeah. So it doesn't hurt just to watch a video to make sure it's easy to do. But wipers, I never remember to replace them until it's raining. And then I'm like, oh, I got to get new wipers.
So here's a tip from my side. I know there are a lot of different, you go to any Advanced Auto and there's probably 20 different types of wiper blades, the inserts and the actual wiper blade arm that you could buy. All I can tell you is, with the very specific curvature of a lot of the Porsche windshields, some of these aftermarket windshield arms don't lay completely onto your glass. So I am a huge fan of making sure that you're using an OEM wiper blade insert or OEM wiper blade arm if you're going to replace the whole thing. The reason why I say that is because I was at Costco and I saw so let's not call them, I won't say the name brand, but I bought a set of wipers for
Does it rhyme with Lyco?
I bought a set of wipers for Loan's Boxster, thinking, oh, it looks pretty good, good price. I got the right size and everything. It was the right length, but I replaced it. And when you put it on the windshield, this much of it does not touch the windshield because it doesn't make enough of an arc in the windshield, a wiper arm. So now when it wipes, it misses like 2 inches of the windshield, and it is quite annoying.
Do you blame it on the metric system?
Yeah, so OEM is the way to go, in my opinion, for that.
Yeah, and also remember, if you have a rear wiper,
Oh yeah,
replace that. So many people forget that, and you may say, well, I never use it. But it still dries out, it starts to fall apart, and the last thing you want to do is accidentally hit the rear wiper, and it's already taken it's deteriorated. Now you're scratching your rear window because you accidentally turned the wiper on. But
let me ask the audience, and you didn't write anything about this, but I've seen some stuff where you can polish your windshield.
Yes.
I mean, like I know that, like, well, that's a new windshield, so there's no streak marks or anything like that. But I hear you can polish your windshield and get rid of the shadow of the arm sweep, or maybe there's lots of pitting in your windshield. Have any of you had success doing that? I've never tried that. I would like to do that.
I have.
Yeah.
They sell windshield polish. If your windshield's pitted, to me, it did nothing.
Okay.
What it does, it kind of like when paint. You know, when you clean it,
Yeah.
you have the squeaky clean. You can run your microfiber towel and it squeaks.
Yeah.
The windshield's almost the same because there's a lot of contaminants on the windshield, just from the rubber on the wiper going back and forth. If you put any kind of Rain-X, Rain-X
Okay.
is great, but that leaves a film on
Right.
on the windshield. So this starts from new. Like I said, it doesn't sand out the pitting on it, but like my windshield develops a rubber buildup, and I'm not sure if it's a wiper or what, and you can see when you can start to see it streaking, and then I'll go in and just basically polish all of it off. So I'm starting from new.
There you go.
Let's see, paint chip repair. Yep, that's a great off-season project.
Oh yeah.
And I know you've done it for a long time, so you're
Absolutely.
sort of a pro.
There's a number of different chip repair. I just look through Pano. You'll find the different brands. We've used Dr. Color chip here, on this 964, and it's what I tell people. It's like baking a cake. If you do it a number of times, you get really good at it. But anybody can do it, especially colors such as red, black. The Dr. Color chip system is quite easy to use, and if you mess up, there's a solution that you can take all of it off and you can start over. But that's a great way to renew, chips that you got, driving on the highway, driving on the track, or behind the wheels and stuff like that. Not terribly expensive. It's about, I think, $60 to $100 for a kit, and one little kit does a lot of chips.
And patience.
A lot of patience.
I don't have patience, and you need patience to.
You do.
'cause you need multiple layers to get it
Yes.
right, because you want the level of the paint to match the factory paint, and that's what when you got those little touch-up paint cans from
Yeah.
Porsche. That's great to keep in your collection to look at, but it leaves a big glob on there,
Right.
and it looks worse than the chip itself. So these, like Dr. Color chip, does a great job of filling it in and blending it in, but just take some patience if you have a bigger chip, because it may take a couple applications to put it on. And
If Vu can do it, you can do it.
I would also, if your car's been repainted or had body work, the color you order from Dr. Color chip may not be an exact match.
Right.
And I think I found that out with my car. It was a little bit off, and it was because evidently when the car was painted and they blended it in, it wasn't the exact same color.
So that's when you actually want to go to a chip repair pro, because they will have hundreds of colors, and they'll be able to custom mix and adjust for the color that you have.
But when it does, Vu worked on my Chevy Tahoe before we were going to trade it in, and we had a pretty significant, about the size of my thumb chip, and he
That was a bad one.
That was, but we couldn't even see where the chip was when he was done. It was pretty impressive.
Yep.
Next one is if you have seats that are torn and need repair, while fixing that fabric or the leather is going to be a somewhat experienced level, I would tell people just take them out and take them to the upholster. It's going to be probably a lot easier than you having to drive your car there, and if they're going to leave the car outside, just bring them the chair or the seat rather, and you're not going to be using the car for a couple months anyhow, and it's a good opportunity to either get the whole seat redone, like the one in the picture needs a whole entire restoration, or if it's just a small tear that you want to have addressed.
I mean, and depending on how nice you want it, obviously doing a full refurb on both seats is probably ideal. But there are also people that have taken, let's say, fairly good seats out of their car and put track seats in. Sometimes you come across those at a swap meet or on eBay or even on like Facebook Marketplace. That would be a good time, while you may decide you're going to restore or not the seats that are in your car, but you could get another used, new to you, black set that you can drop right in.
Yeah, and it's also a good time if you have a seat that's not reclining all the way, or there's a motor that's gone bad. It's a great opportunity to work on that, because once again, you're not going to be using the car for a few months. Might as well address it instead of being out of commission when it is the driving season.
And it's also a great opportunity if you don't want to fix that seat and you want to upgrade to the seat that might be a little bit more aggressive in keeping you in place for an autocross or an HPDE, and do more of, I wouldn't say a race seat, but a more sporty seat. So either getting a sport seat or getting a fixed back seat or something that is a little bit more conducive for enthusiastic driving.
And usually the aftermarket seats aren't a direct replacement. So
Right.
they take some time to get the height to your liking, to get just adjusted perfectly.
You have to get adapters, in fact, to make sure that they fit into your
that
track.
the seat belts work and whatnot. The other one is seems kind of straightforward, but people put it off. Is changing your fluids. The difficulty level, well, depends exactly what fluid you're doing. Obviously, I would say oil's the easiest one. That's pretty straightforward. But you have a lot of different fluids in there. You have your transmission, your power steering, your differential, your brake fluid. That's all fluids that need to be changed. Some are annual, some are biannual. But once again, the off season is a perfect opportunity to do this. I know Vu has this little tool here, the Motive.
This is the pressure bleeder here, and this is great for. I use it dry, meaning I fill up the reservoir and then I just pressurize the reservoir with this to send the fluid through the system. I more recently started using this. This one actually, using a compressed air, actually pulls the brake fluid at the caliper outlet and draws the fluid there. Oil filters and changing your oil. Lance was talking about making sure you know the specific torque to torque down your seats. That's from a safety perspective. But then also it's important when you're doing like a fluid change, knowing the proper torque. I can't tell you how many times people over torque either the oil filter or they over torque the oil
plug,
drain
plug,
and especially if they've changed it to say to a aluminum plug that has a little magnet or something like that. Like there's not a whole lot of torque that is needed to keep those in place, and when you over torque it, it actually distorts it, and when it distorts it, now you're going to have a leak. So make sure anything that you're taking apart, when you're putting it back together, put it back together with the proper torque setting.
And of course. Hopefully this is common sense, but dispose of your fluids responsibly. Take it to the recycling center. That doesn't mean dropping off in your backyard or along the curb. Recycling center take, I think, almost every type of fluid in a car. And just look. I watch your videos and I see how difficult it is, and then I determine whether I'm going to do it myself or if it's just less of a headache and have the shop do it. Transmission fluids, some are very easy. Some are more involved. Differential, probably a little bit harder. You got to have the right tools, make sure you have the right gaskets. But see what you want to do, and you're going to save some money and keep the car maintained properly.
Consider it good insurance for future.
Exactly, and that includes also coolant. You know, we're still working on the video. We did the water pump on Rob Sass's 996, and Damon had this great tool he brought in, which a lot of you have used. But it works under pressure, and it fills up the coolant and blows out all the air pockets in there. And it was incredible watching this tool that screwed onto the reservoir and just.
So if you have kids that are watching it right now, please cover their eyes, because I'm going to show you the inside of this water pump. It's pretty scary. So I don't know how many years
It looks
the
like
coolant.
the Titanic's water pump.
Yeah, so that's why it's important to change your fluids.
And with the right fluids.
With the right fluids.
Yeah, that's what I think wrong antifreeze can do to a water pump.
All right, we're getting at the top of the hour, so we're going to have to fly through the rest of them.
So the other one is we did a show on this about upgrading your sound system.
Here you go. Right from the factory. If you'd like, you can go with the Porsche PCM. This upgrades your single DIN. They now have a double DIN unit for you 986 and 996 owners. If you haven't chopped up the harness in your car, these are really plug and play. And this brings Apple CarPlay and into your and modernizes the stereo system in your car. Super easy to do. Being a Porsche product, you're going to pay a little bit of a premium, but it looks and works as an OEM radio should.
It's something that, once again, I don't think about until I get in the car, and then I always say to myself, I'm going to upgrade the stereo. Real quick, check your brakes. Brake pad replacement's fairly straightforward. Even rotor replacement is straightforward as well. Speaking along safety, make sure everything's torqued down correctly. If you're not 100% sure what you're doing, either take it to a professional or have someone who's done it before check your work. Obviously, brakes are very important for your safety to stop, but you'll find it's also very, very rewarding to be able to do it yourself, at least know how to check to see how the pads are wearing and how the rotors are wearing.
And we have a video where we changed the rotors and pads on my Cayenne, and it's a big job. So, if you have someone do it, it's probably going to be a fairly big bill. The parts themselves are expensive. Changing it, yeah, it's a lot of work, but at least you'll know what they're doing and what you're paying for. But as Manny said, if you're a DIYer and you're willing to do it yourself and have someone oversee and making sure you're doing it correctly, it's very rewarding.
And usually when you're working on your brakes, what you're going to see also is the suspension components that may need to be replaced. And we're talking about the bushings, the links, anywhere where there's rubber that's deteriorated. And you put it off, you see that it's torn, you see that it's old. Now's the time to replace it when the car is going to be down for a while, is to order the parts, get those end links replaced, and make sure everything's top notch, so when you go take it out canyon driving or through those mountain roads, the car feels just like it is when it was new. Real quick also, I know Vu has a rag top cleaner. We did a video about conditioning your top. I know it's the end of the season, but that doesn't mean you can't condition your top. So when the season starts, it's ready to go. Take a look at that. That's a pretty easy job to do before it gets too cold and when things start freezing.
So I've been watching the chat here. I guess our conversation may have been interesting because there hasn't been a whole lot of text, but the things that people brought up, we actually had it on our list, which is why we haven't shared what quote unquote you have planned. We talked about the stereo, doing that. Marcelo talked about using an additive for carbon deposit cleaning. Again, do your research on that. Some people throw in a bottle of, let's say, Techron into their gas, go for a nice spirited drive and do an oil flush after that. A lot of people do that. Again, do the research, make sure that's something that you want to do. Are we wrapped up here?
One thing we didn't put on the list because we haven't done a video, but we were planning to this season. This will be our club's project, is to replace. How many people with 986s, 996s, 997s have foam shooting for your vents?
Oh, yes.
You hit that power defrost button, and it just happened to me 2 days ago in our Boxster, and big clunk of old foam came flying out the dashboard. So that's coming off the fresh air flap. And why Porsche did this, I'm not sure, but they covered the flap with this foam, and the door itself has holes in it. So as the foam is starting to deteriorate over age, air is not being blocked anymore, and fresh air just comes right through, and it blocks your heat from coming in. So eventually, you will not have heat, even though your temperature is turned all the way up. It just won't be able to compete with the cold air coming in. So we're going to be doing a video on that. And hopefully, we've seen there's videos already on YouTube about it. There's different methods. We're going to see what the easiest method is, and let you all know which what we recommend. And hopefully, it's going to be a fairly DIY, easy to do, because I'm sure a lot of people out there, and I see them at shows, at Cars and Coffee. There's little pieces of foam sitting on people's dash.
Oh, and I'm constantly picking them out of the air vents. So 2 quick things, I don't think we mentioned it, but we have it here, is your belts. Make sure to take a look at your belts and see if there's any cracks and conditions there. And same thing with your tires. Take a look at your tires, because sometimes you forget during the driving season. Look at the inside, towards the inside of your tires because of the camber. Is it more worn out? Make sure things are wearing evenly. Make sure there's no cracks. Look at your date codes on your tires and making sure that they're in a proper lifespan. So with that, I'm going to say, please, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit the like button. We really do love it when you provide a comment, and especially comical ones. We'll respond to them. And of course, subscribe. We recorded our 36th podcast today. Currently, we have number 35 out there. If you haven't checked out PCA Insider, I invite you to do so. It's a lot of funny conversations.
It's all about our trip to SEMA.
And then we also share with you what's the latest news from Porsche. This Sunday, we will be heading out to Burbank for Unstock, the 2nd annual Unstock. Together with West Coast Customs, we're expecting over 125 modified Porsches and thousands of people coming to celebrate the modified Porsches. And we have a number of SEMA Porsches coming to Unstock. Follow, of course, through all the different media channels that we offer. We have the LA Auto Show preview that's coming November 18th. That is sold out, but we will have Manny and Damon there capturing as much as they can to share with you through those social media channels. If you haven't bought your raffle ticket for the America edition, the GTS, be sure to get your tickets for $50. You could turn it into a beautiful 911 America Edition GTS. The next Tech Tactics will actually be after, I can't believe it, after the Thanksgiving holidays. So until then, be safe, have lots of food, enjoy the family, and we'll see you on the 30th. Take care.